Alright, today we're talking about the judicial branch, and we're specifically going to focus on the federal court systems and the Supreme Court. There are also separate state court systems and local court systems. We will refer to those a little bit, but we're going to focus mostly at the federal and the national level. On the right you see a sculpture here of Lady Justice. Notice that she is blindfolded so that she can be a fair and impartial juror while she holds these scales and, as you might think, weigh the evidence to make sure that justice is served. First thing we need to discuss is jurisdiction. Again, we're going to talk about the federal level, but jurisdiction applies at both the federal, the state, and local levels. Jurisdiction is simply the authority of a court to hear and decide a case. So if a court has jurisdiction, that just means they have the right to hear that case. So it's kind of like having the right to own property, the case being property. Original jurisdiction refers to a court that gets to hear a case first. So if your court has the original jurisdiction, that means the case would come to them first, and they would get the first shot at trying the case. Appellate jurisdiction, it refers to a court that can only hear a case after it has been appealed or contended and the result has been contested or they want to try it again. So if you think of the process, it goes to the original court, the original jurisdiction, and then after that decision is made, if the result gets appealed, it goes to the appellate court who has appellate jurisdiction. Here's a picture of the federal court system. It looks like a lot if you look at it all at once. So we're going to start over here on the left-hand side. Now at the bottom here, we have the district courts, the federal district courts. Notice there are about 94 federal district courts, and they are spread across the United States. There happens to be two in Iowa, a north and south division in Iowa. And so if you wanted to try a federal court case, original jurisdiction would go to the district court. After original jurisdiction, if the district court tried a case and found an outcome, and that outcome got appealed or challenged, it would then move up to the U.S. Federal Court of Appeals. So following along, you have the district court, they try the case. If it is appealed, it goes to the U.S. Court of Appeals. There's 13 of those courts spread across the U.S. And if that decision gets appealed, there's a possibility that the case would go up to the Supreme Court if the Supreme Court was willing to hear the case. Now, there's other ways that a court case could get to the Supreme Court. Many of them start at local courts, okay, so think of like your county courthouse. And then if it got appealed, it could be appealed to a state appeals court. And from the state appeals court, that could be challenged, the decision could be challenged again, and it could go to the highest state court of appeals, which is usually the state Supreme Court. So in Iowa, that would be the Iowa State Supreme Court. And then after that step, it could go over to the Federal Court of Appeals, or it could go directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. And then on the far right, you also have some special courts. And these courts deal with special items like international trade, the Court of Claims, or military appeals. And for each of these, they deal with a special topic. And so if that court makes a decision and that decision is not, if it gets challenged, it then proceeds to the U.S. Supreme Court. So a little more in-depth look at the district route here. Let's say you go to the U.S. District Court first. It starts at the lowest level in the federal system, which is the district court. There's 95 of them in all 50 states and the territories, including Puerto Rico and D.C. The district courts do not have appellate jurisdiction, okay, because they have original jurisdiction. That's the original place that the court can hear. So cases will not be appealed to the district court. They will only start in the district court. And as we mentioned, they do have original jurisdiction over most cases. Now, from the district court, if it were to be appealed, it would move up to the Court of Appeals. This is kind of the middle level in the federal system. There are 12 or 13, depending how you look at it, regional appeals courts, including the D.C. court. Now, the Court of Appeals obviously does not have original jurisdiction because they didn't hear the case first. It went to the district court, and then it came up to the Court of Appeals. So this would be an appellate court, meaning they have appellate jurisdiction. And once again, if that decision got contested or appealed, it could elevate to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land. We know there's 9 justices in D.C. We'll talk about the process of certiorari here, and there is limited jurisdiction for the Supreme Court, but we'll talk about that in a second. So the Supreme Court, composed of 9 justices, they're pictured here at the bottom. They are appointed by the president, so the president gets to choose a new Supreme Court justice should one leave during his term of office. But the president can't do this single-handedly. He is checked by the Senate, who has to confirm with a 2/3 vote his appointment. So here we see a check and balance that the president and the Congress, in this case the Senate, have over the Supreme Court. Now the check that the Supreme Court has, they are appointed for life. So the president and the Senate cannot get rid of them or threaten them if they don't see eye to eye. So they serve until they retire, or until they resign, until they die, or until they are impeached, which several justices have been impeached. And here you do see the court, and you also notice that we've been promoting more diversity to reflect the diverse cultures in America. If you were to look at this court, when it started out, there first of all wouldn't have been 9 justices, there would have only been 7, but also you see more diversity in gender and also ethnicity, which is a positive sign of progress, that we are incorporating the views of more diverse groups. Now the Supreme Court has kind of a unique jurisdiction. They do have original jurisdiction over certain cases, and those are ones involving the states themselves, or cases involving ambassadors or diplomats that usually represent the U.S. in other countries. Now, the Supreme Court also has appellate jurisdiction. They can hear any case that gets appealed. So if a case gets appealed, they could request to hear it. Now, how do they request to hear it? Well, they issue something called the writ of certiorari, which is an order that requires the lower courts to send up their cases for review. So if a decision is made in the lower court and the Supreme Court hears about it and it's a very interesting issue and they'd like to weigh in, or they'd like to review the case, they can request it, and then it becomes one of the Supreme Court's cases. Now keep in mind that the Supreme Court gets offered thousands of cases a year, but they only have time to hear maybe between 100 and 200 cases. That's all that they practically have time for. Judicial review is really the big power of the judicial branch, and that is the power to review the constitutionality of an act of government. So let's say the legislative branch writes a law. If they write a law, the judicial branch can review that law and make sure it's constitutional. If it's not, then they exercise their power by declaring it unconstitutional and the law is null and void. If the executive branch issues an executive order, the judicial branch can review it and determine if it is constitutional or not. And so here we see the power of judicial review is the great equalizer. It's what makes the judicial branch an equal member of the triumvirate, the 3 branches of government. And it also serves as a check and balance here. And that's it for today. I apologize for any audio troubles with background noises.